That committee, I serve as chair. Mr. Boykin is on the committee, Mr. Darby, Reverend Middleton, and the chairman serves on all committees. Do I have a motion for the approval of the minutes of February 22nd?
Move to approve. Second.
Properly moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? All right, that passes. We have an agenda item to discuss the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council update. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Is Judge Steinberg? Okay, this is a presentation only, no action will be taken.
Thank you very much. I feel like saying, may it please the court. I'm Ellen Steinberg. I am the director of the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council, affectionately known as CJCC. Let's put this power sheet. And standing with me is the research manager, Ashley Voislevovich. And we are delighted to tell you about CJCC tonight. Got it? The Criminal Justice Coordinating Council, it's really how elected, appointed executive level policymakers in jurisdictions across the country meet collaboratively to talk about what are the issues facing the criminal justice system. What can we do? How can we do it to address these issues? The council members include, we have an executive committee, we have positional members that are made up of councilmen, sheriff, all law enforcement agents. We have clerk of court, we have the solicitor, the public defender, we have head of agencies. We all come together bi-monthly to sit together and review the data. It's all about the data. The purpose is because we can come together, because we can sit and go through the data, we can look and see what's working. Where are the gaps in the system? How can we come together and proactively, with evidence, address these issues? Function, yeah, okay, how we do it. We call ourselves a data fusion center. We have 17 contributors in the county who literally bring us data. Ashley is really the data head here. We're going to go back and forth. I'm going to let her talk to you a little bit more. When we talk about data contributors, I want you to understand what we're talking about.
Good evening, everyone. As Director Steinberg said, I am the research manager for the CJCC. And so when we're talking about a data fusion center, I want you to imagine an emergency preparedness response, a joint task force, the collaboration, the hub of how everyone comes together and formats information into a way that we all understand it with each other. So we have information coming from law enforcement, the clerk of court, the solicitor's office, the public defender's office, and that really gives us something that no one else in the county can give us because it is our information, but we're able to track that from the beginning of the justice system all the way through until case disposition. And so with our different contributors, we are creating information that isn't just for them, it's for the community, it's for public safety. And so our mission really is twofold. Is one, we want to strengthen the leadership and the stakeholders so that they have a better awareness of what they're doing and how they're doing it, and so that they can make a stronger impact. But then the second fold is also providing that information to the community and having them get a better understanding of what's happening, why things happen the way they do, and how we're all interconnected together. So I really want this to be a time where if there are questions, to feel free to ask. Don't feel like you have to wait until the end of the presentation. But I do want to focus in on this stakeholder collaboration. So with our leadership, we have police chiefs, we have the chief solicitor, the chief public defender. These are all individuals who have a key role in our justice system, And without their collaboration, the picture that would be painted for us would not be accurate of what's really happening locally. So again, with the CJCC, we're able to provide that glimpse into our system in a holistic way that isn't siloed because of what agency you're working for. We are Charleston County. We are all Charleston County. And because of that, we're able to speak to accountability and transparency and how to better direct resources and involve the community in that process. So I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. We have our bi-monthly meetings, but we also have task forces. We have work groups that meet monthly, and that's really where the core work is being done. So when we talk about what we're doing, I want you to understand that some of the things we have done is since CJC started in 2015, we have reduced the detention center population by 62%. We have reduced single target charges by 83%. When we say single target charges, we're talking about really low-level misdemeanor cases. We're talking about trespass, public disorderly conduct, simple possession of marijuana. These are the type of charges, instead of being picked up, taken and booked into the detention center, they are now giving a uniform traffic ticket. They're told when they need to be to court and what the fine is. It has expedited, it has moved, it has helped the detention center enormously. We have set up public defenders at initial bond hearings. And we have also, what we have is a validated risk assessment tool. This is a risk assessment tool. It's level 1, 2, 3, 4. This is for bond court. The judges in bond court, prior to having a risk assessment tool, all they had was prior history of the person in front of them. And the bond court judge has to make a decision. This is an analysis. It provides them with some guidance. For a bond court judge has to make a decision within 24 hours. And the only reason to hold somebody in detention is they're a threat for further criminal activity, or they're a threat not to appear for court. We also have the Solicitor's Office case management system we help them with, and the Just Home Project, which I'm sure you're familiar with because that's a joint collaboration with Charleston Center Community Development and Revitalization, Affordable Housing, South Carolina Community Loan. I want to point out that what we are doing here in Charleston is unique. This is not happening anyplace else in South Carolina. We are a true model of what can be done and how it does impact the system. Thank you. Ongoing research and reporting. Last year, we published a paper on unlawful carrying of a firearm. Everybody here recognizes that has really been a huge topic in South Carolina. As of last year, for the last 3 years, unlawful carrying of firearm has been the top most often charge in Charleston County. Now, as of March 7th, the state changed the law. We'll come back to you in about 6-10 months and let you know what the effect of that is. Right now, we can't really tell you. Risk assessment revalidation. When I was talking about when we do the analysis for bond court, we don't take it for granted. Every 2 to 3 years, we step back and we look at the numbers. Is it working? What's changed? It's a dynamic system. This community is dynamic. It changes. We want to make sure that decisions are being made. Case efficiency. Case efficiency, we're looking at when somebody is arrested and there's a case in General Sessions Court, from the time of that arrest until the case is formally disposed of, how much time? I will tell you, in Charleston County in the Ninth Circuit, it is a big issue. It has been an issue for a number of years. We talk about COVID. It only exacerbated it. It has become a much larger issue. And why we're paying attention to that is if somebody's in jail waiting for their case to be heard because of the backlog, that's in effect. If somebody is waiting for their case to be heard and they're out on the streets, victims get lost, witnesses get lost, it's more difficult to move cases forward. I'm just giving you a little glimpse as to some of the issues. Case efficiency is looking at not only the criminal justice system, but also the victims in our community. We are getting ready to publish our 2023 annual report. I'm going to let Ashley talk about it because she has literally been underground for, 3 months now putting it together, which we're very proud of.
All right, so our annual report encapsulates the highlights from last year. And so this is going to be the most encompassing report involving justice system data for the entire Charleston County. So again, that information from law enforcement, from the solicitor's office, from the detention center, from all the way through case disposition, we bring it all together in a succinct package. And this year, we're happy to have a revised format where it is more digestible to the viewer. The target audience in mind is the general public, and so we don't want to create data saturation, essentially providing so much information that the reader is overwhelmed, gets lost in numbers, and loses the relevancy of what it's there for. And so with this annual report, it's going to be a really strong tool for our community, but also for the justice system leadership when making decisions, when wanting a glimpse of what's happening in different areas. And so we're looking to pushing this out before the end of spring. And so you will be advised when it is out for release. And then we'll be happy to talk more about that.
Lots of conversation coming up with that. Local impacts, we work with the Charleston Metro Chamber of Commerce, community justice forums. We put on forums for the community to help educate them. And as a side note, when we do that, we've been doing it via Zoom because everyone gets used to Zoom these days, but we also provide it in not only in English but also Spanish. That has had a huge impact. We had a conference last October, State of the Criminal Justice System. It was a statewide conference. We are still reaping the benefits of that, again, in the state. Juvenile Justice Network, I'm really very excited to tell you about this. We all recognize that when we talk criminal justice, we're not only talking about adults 18 and up. We have to pay attention to the youth, because our youth grow up and we read what's going on. We were very fortunate. NACO, National Association of Counties, they were offering a grant to create a juvenile justice innovation network. We applied for the grant. We were one of 5 sites chosen to participate in this. It's getting started. I, again, look forward to telling you more about it in the next few months, but this is something we feel very strongly about in Charleston. We've got to pay more attention to the youth in our communities. Keep going. Data, here you go.
Yes. So as the designated data speaker, I wanted to reiterate that we don't just house information for the sake of housing it. It's not information that we hold on to that we're just able, if requested, to spit out some numbers. Everything that we do serves a purpose and is actionable. So when I say that we make data-based decisions, think of it as evidence-based decisions. We don't make a decision based upon what we're feeling that day or what we hear a rumor might be. We look at what the evidence says, where the numbers are pointing to us. So some of the ways that we do this is through looking at our average daily jail population or looking at how the bonds and the risk levels are falling. Do we have a majority of lower level risk assessments, or when we have those higher levels, what is that comprised of? So we're able to not only isolate certain factors, but be able to lift up ones where we can make that success and identify what next steps should be based upon numbers and not just an overall feeling. One of the things that came out of this process is being able to pay attention to those frequent charges. Like Director Steinberg said moments ago, the top charge coming into the detention center for 3 years straight was unlawful carrying of a firearm. Well, if we didn't have that information, and March 7th, with Governor McMaster's signing of the permitless carry bill came into play, we wouldn't be able to show you in the future how that decision may or may not impact us locally. So we've laid the groundwork to be able to follow certain areas that are going to be of an extreme relevance to our community. So all that to say is that we don't just have numbers for the sake of having them. They serve a purpose, and our leadership makes decisions based upon that information. And because we're able to do that in a collaborative environment, that data is not siloed to a specific agency. It is shared collaboratively throughout the council membership, and so that makes us stronger and better and more focused when we're able to identify those target issues and then identify benchmarks of how we're going to show success as well.
Thank you. Why all this matters? It matters because CJCC is the only agency in Charleston County that has this. It matters because the information that we receive allows us to look at what kind of programs can Charleston County put together that's going to affect, for instance, those people coming out of jail or prison. Why is that going to be important to us? It's going to result in additional cost savings. It's going to reduce recidivism. You know, we're really focused on the criminal justice system. What can we do so that there is not a constant turnaround of in and out of the justice system? And that translates, you know, as we all know, into cost. Can't get away from it. We impact, as we say, relative timely data, embedded in the community, data application. As Ashley said, people read different pieces of different types of news, and all they see is, oh my God, you know, everything is just awful. There's so much crime. Well, we can tell you what crime is really taking place, and is it rising or is it not? We have the data, and just as a side note, it's not. It is not increasing. So just saying that. Impacts. What else? Is there more?
I can talk about closing gaps.
Closing gaps.
Yes. So in addition to being able to alleviate perhaps some fears or concerns with those numbers, that also allows us to close the gaps in knowledge. So many of you are practitioners and you've worked in the justice system in some capacity, in some way, and you know how your agency works and how to read your numbers and how your agency functions. However, collaboratively, how often were you interacting with perhaps a partnering agency, an office, or organization? Perhaps professionally, yes, but only on an as-needed basis. And so the more that we can put leadership and representatives into the room together, the stronger we can become to make that change, but also close the gaps in knowledge. That means that when there's a question that arises, we're able to identify where maybe some of us are falling short, or vice versa. We identify an individual who is really strong in an area that another isn't as strong, and we can take what's happening and replicate it in another area of the county. And so again, it's this collaborative environment that pushes us forward and allows us to make those small changes that end up having large impacts. And by so doing that, we increase the awareness of what's going on. And it goes back to that evidence-based decisions of informing the next steps, of being able to identify what matters and the strategies that we can put into place to show that success has occurred.
We can talk about what we've done locally. We've engaged with MUSC on gun violence. We are collaborating with the College of Charleston with Dr. Anthony Bashara. We are now working on our next 5-year strategic plan, which will include community outreach. We're going to call it community data dialogues, because we don't want to work in a vacuum either. We want to hear from the community. What are their concerns? What are they saying? So that's going to be launching this summer. Nationally, Urban Institute is working with the Just Home Project just to help you put that together. Justice System Partners, they're a technical advisor, have helped us enormously. International Association of Chiefs of Police, that's not me, that's Ashley. Academy of Criminal Justice Sciences, also Ashley. And just kind of as a side note, when she is there under the CJCC, Charleston County, bringing national attention to us. And the National Association of Counties, again, the Juvenile Justice Innovation Network, which we're very excited to get started on. I so appreciate your time and your attention, and please, if you have any questions, ask us now, or you can reach out to us anytime.
Chairman?
Who do you want? Mr. Cabral.
Well, first, I want to thank you for all your hard work and your excellent presentation. And I just, I'm a lawyer, but I don't do any criminal defense work. But I do represent often students who are violently assaulted in our public schools, as well as teachers who are. And I'd just like to address the juvenile justice component. I was just going to, from my limited exposure to it, you do an excellent job, but I wish there was more emphasis on the impact of very violent acts on children, because my experience was that as we processed that in arbitration, it was all about, there were minors, but those who commit horrific acts on other minors, and about making them whole, but less on the victims of it. And sometimes the parents and the children leave very unhappy because they felt that they weren't heard. That's not a particular complaint, as you've done an excellent job and coordinated everything, but I just like to say it and I don't know if that was just an outlier experience, but it seemed to be that they were, that wasn't the focus, but the horrific acts of violence, just because somebody's a minor, they are still capable of inflicting a lot of physical pain, long-term mental problems on victims in our schools. And I just wanted to express that. I wouldn't be honest if I didn't express a concern. But again, I thank you for your excellent work and all that you've done. It's not meant as a criticism, but just as an observation that I hope that they can emphasize what happens to the victims of violence in the schools, as well as those who we don't want them to become lifetime criminals. I understand all that, but the real consequences in the sense of frustration when it's not fully vetted and not wanting to be heard in that context. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Reverend Middleton?
Thank you so much, Madam Chairwoman, and to both of you who've come to highlight just the very important and necessary work of the CJCC. I just find this to be extremely evolutionary in the sense that I remember back in 2015, when I was project leader over the Illumination Project, and Christy Danford, we were trying to get both these organizations up at that time, and recognizing the importance of the coordinating aspects of all of the justice wheels, getting everybody in one room around the same table and looking at data versus just feelings. I mean, we had a sense that some of these things based on the climate within the criminal justice system were happening, but didn't have the evidence. And from that perspective, we're able to make decisions that really you all are making a positive, huge impact. So thank you for allowing this presentation today. I know sometimes people feel like presentations are long, but some of them need to be long in order for us to understand the impact and the import of some of these organizations, and then looking at the national representation and impact, and to Deputy Administrator Watson for overarchingly, seeing the importance of umbrelling this organization. I am extremely happy that we had this presentation tonight.
Thank you. Anybody else on the committee or otherwise? Mr. Werman?
Thank you, Councilwoman Honeycutt. I'm not on the committee, but I did just want to say, I'm also thankful for all the work you've done, all the information you've provided tonight, and have gathered over a long period of time. I did just want to clarify, there is certainly a victim advocacy component on the CJCC. Again, it's sort of bringing folks together, and the Victims Advocate offices are a part of that, and certainly excited to see, the focus on juvenile justice moving forward. So I just wanted that to sort of be clarified. I don't think it's being ignored, but in any event, thank you all for coming and presenting tonight.
Yes. Anything else? Thank you very much. We appreciate the work the CJCC does, as well as the Public Safety Directorate supervising those roles. So we look forward to your annual report.
Thank you very much.
All right. That concludes our public safety meeting for tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We'll convene our Planning Public Works Committee agenda. All members of council are on the committee and voting. First order of business is approval of the minutes from March 21.
Move to approve. Second.
Mr. Middleton, I think, we gave him first because he was next to me. Who seconded? Mr. Pryor? Any changes, deletions? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Last meeting, we kicked these three comprehensive plan elements back to committee to further discuss, so let's take them one at a time. Item 2A is Chapter 3.6, Housing Element.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Werman.
I would move that the Housing Element Strategy 7 be amended to state, continue to encourage provision of affordable housing that is affordable to all residents and meets the needs of the diversifying population by allowing alternative housing types by right in the urban-suburban area as identified by council.
Okay.
All right, we got a motion and seconded. Discussion.
Mr.
Mr. Pryor, let's work our way down the list.
Mr. Werman, I applaud you for what you're trying to do, but as you know, most property that we control are in the unincorporated area. And when you give these people by rights, and I see it's going to start happening is they're going to start moving in, and these developers are going to start buying these lots in these poor-ridden areas, and they're going to start putting these multi-duplexes in these areas. So they have a chance to do that right now. They just have to go through a process of a plan development and go through the process of the public comments and, and the planning commission. So I don't want to put language in that allows these people to come in. Now, what you're talking about, certainly the city of North Charleston, city of Charleston and Mount Pleasant has a right to do that. But in the unincorporated area, I think we opening up the door really in the rural areas as well, too, to allow these folks to come in. So while I think it's admirable what you're trying to do, I can't support that motion. I think if these folks want to come in and go through the process, they have a right to, because we saved those folks on Wallace Lane, and if we allow this to happen, everybody's going to open the floodgate. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Would you like to respond to that first, Mr. Werman? Or okay,
I can take it. I can jot down notes, and I'll respond eventually.
Okay. You wanted to say okay, Mr. Kabrowski.
Does he respond, or if you?
He said he wanted to respond it all at once. I guess was my read on what he said.
I second Mr. Pryor's comments and his concerns. He said it better than I could have, but I just echo what he said, and I wasn't sure what the definition of alternative housing meant. That's kind of vague language. What does that mean?
I'm happy to take both of those concerns, maybe the easiest one first. So alternative housing types was listed in the previous language. It would have said, example, duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, townhomes. So the reason why we took that out, or why I took that out, is to not, and I think, by the way, example probably implies this already, but just to make clear that we're not locking in any particular set of those. But that's what you'd be talking about. You'd be talking about not necessarily multifamily, big apartments, but smaller scale, albeit, individually more dense. And I do want to be clear. The density is all on the books already. This does not increase density. This just allows folks to build it in different types of ways within what's already allowed. And so, if you talk to the housing folks, they'll talk about the missing middle and the fact that we used to live in a country with a very diverse and multitudes of types of housing. I think that's largely how the middle class of America was built. I know my dad, and he was a kid, lived in apartments and then a townhome, and then they got a single family home. This is part of providing more of a ladder, more options for folks. I would again sort of reiterate that it's really, density is already on the books. It's just whether you can build a huge mansion out of it or whether you can allow multiple people to kind of live together on the same plat. Mr. Pryor, I take your point, and so I think part of what I'm trying to do with this is to address some of the concerns I heard from council. And so, I think it's done much more simply than maybe, I think it's done in a simple way by basically just saying as identified by council. And I think, the way I can envision that happening is we could carve out certain areas. So this would come up in an amendment to the ZLDR, be, a one-time sort of amendment across the board. And in that, you could identify, here's an area that's not appropriate for it, here's an area that is appropriate for it. We could identify how far on that list of duplex, triplex, fourplex, townhome we want to go. And I will say I take the gentrification point seriously as well. Listen, you could tie it to the provision of affordable housing. There are a lot of conditions that could be sort of inserted when this comes to the actual time to amend the ordinance. I think I was trying to provide something that would, I think like a lot of the amendments were taken up, allow for some optionality and not lock us into something where folks are going to come in and say, no, I have a right because you said by right everything in Charleston County. So I guess, I'd like to have some sort of clear vision for where we're going, but I think that there's a lot of details to be sorted out, and I think this allows us to move forward on that track without having to sort all those details and allowing folks to address those concerns when we actually do revise the ZLDR, or when that comes up at least. So those are my thoughts. I don't know if I see staff has maybe some comments if I haven't addressed everything, but okay, very good.
And Mr. Wellman, it all sounds good, and I'm giving you a perfect example. Look at Union Heights. Those folks started saying, well, we need affordable housing. We need affordable housing. They had those little 20 by 15, 20 by 20 lots. They gave them variance, and what they started doing, they started building 2 houses on 1 lot, going up, and those houses are selling for the average of $406,000. So, a lot of these developers, in the name of affordable housing, will latch into these things and says, look, I can get more duplex in to bring some more folks in, but affordable to who? And that is my concern, because if you got a 65, 70-year-old person that's living there, been there all their life, and then you bring in all these stuff next to them, their property value is going to go up and the taxes is going to go up. They're not going to be able to afford to stay there because of the property taxes. And that's my concern. And so when you open up to do this, it starts at one neighborhood, and then it goes on, and the people who originally were there are forced out because they cannot afford it. And so I don't want to, I know your intent is not gentrification, but nobody's intent is gentrification but the market, what bears us all. And with a shortage and people are moving in, I'm just telling you, I never thought I would see a house sell for $406,000 in Union Heights.
If I could respond to that quickly. Yeah, Mr. Pryor, I take that point, and I don't dispute that is a concern here. I guess what I'm saying is there are ways of moving forward with by right alternative types that can be crafted to address that concern. So I realize Union Heights is not in county jurisdiction,
No,
but
no.
by example, you could carve out Union Heights when we talk about what locations this is going to go into. You could even tie it to say, if you're going to do this, you have to do it at a certain price range. There's costs and benefits to putting those types of restrictions on it. But my point is that I think that we've got a lot going on with affordable housing through our gap financing programs and these incentives, but I don't want to lose sight of the fact that the market is going to have to be part of this, and part of it is a market failure of supply, that supply has not kept up with demand. And so to the extent you're telling either a home builder or a homeowner or whoever, listen, if you want to put housing on this place, you're going to have to build 4 different foundations and separate them all out rather than just building one and building a couple of walls between it. There are folks and families of all types who are happily willing to live in that type of, complex. And I think that doesn't make sense to allow, one person to build the same sized house that 4 people could live in when the 4 people level density has already been approved and is on the books. So that's where I come out on it, but I understand the concern. Certainly was just hoping that by allowing some flexibility to address those concerns, we could maybe move this forward.
Mr. Boykin.
I'll be real brief. I absolutely support what Mr. Wareham is doing as far as what his goals are. But again, as Mr. Pryor has said and Mr. Kabrowski has also said, there's 2 ways you can do this. You can do it by special exception with the BZA, or you can do it by planned development. Both of those give the public a forum to weigh in, including those members of those communities. And I went through that when I was at the BZA for the Wallace Lane community. If it hadn't been for that process, I'd have been unaware that 526 transected that community once already. And this was yet one more intrusion, as it were, into their character and culture. So I applaud and I agree with the affordable housing initiative that Mr. Wareham is putting forth, but I'm just concerned, and I've shared this with Mr. Wareham, of taking out the community's ability to be heard, because if it's by right, it's not going to either one of those places ordinarily. So that's all.
Any other comments? Mr. Chairman Sass.
Thank you, Mr. Moody. I appreciate, Mr. Werman, what you say. I agree with Mr. Pryor and Mr. Boykin. I do think that there are places where it works, that are more urban areas, that have commercial mixed in and other uses as well, like downtown. Certain areas in North Charleston, certain areas in Mount Pleasant that are like that. Those are sort of urban areas. They're usually around closer to more traveled roads, maybe by where there's public transportation. And I think that fits, but I don't think that fits in a suburban setting. I can't support it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Sass. Any other comments? Okay. We've got a motion by Mr. Werman, seconded by Mr. Middleton, to amend the housing element. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Aye. The nays have it. So, Madam Clerk, what is approved and on the books right now before we move on, we'll move to the next council reading for second reading. Is that correct? Or do we need?
Well, this has not received first reading yet.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Y'all
So
deferred this
I'm sorry. So what
before
is
first reading?
So what has been approved in the prior Planning and Public Works meeting will be get first reading next council meeting.
That's right.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay, item.
For the record, though, before we move on, can I get the ayes on that were just Werman and Middleton? Was everyone else a nay?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Item 2B is Chapter 3.7 Transportation
Chairman.
Element. Mrs. Honeycutt.
I would propose the following amendment, which is to change the language as we discussed in our last meeting to Prioritize complete street and bridges by promoting where feasible contextually appropriate pedestrian and bike access be incorporated in existing and planned public roadway and bridge projects, and explore potential funding sources for additional pedestrian and bike access projects.
Second.
If I may, again, I was by Zoom the last time we talked about this, didn't come through quite as clearly, but I did receive some follow-up recommendations from Ms. Zimmerman with Charleston Moves, and quite frankly, I was embarrassed to know that there were other more contextually appropriate mechanisms for the inclusion of pedestrian access. So one of the chief concerns that we had here is requirements to put in, say, an 8-foot bike path adjacent to a rural roadway that we were doing, which really didn't make sense because it didn't really connect a whole lot, but it took a whole lot of trees and a whole lot more right-of-way from parcels. Well, there's actually other more contextually appropriate ways of achieving pedestrian and bike access adjacent to the roadway in those circumstances. So what I'd like to do in this amendment, in addition to really abiding by and coming into conformance with the state priority on complete streets, is specifically reference complete streets and also that contextually appropriate language. And of course, this would all be where feasible. When it is not feasible or would take too many trees or not be in the best interest of the public, then certainly we would have the ability to do
Might
that.
I ask a clarification?
Yeah,
If you don't mind, you mentioned feasible. That's one of my hot buttons. Would that be a part of your motion, that it would be at where feasible?
That is in the language.
Okay, thank you. And, okay, good. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor of the amendment, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Item 2C, Chapter 3.10.
Mr. Chair, I
Mr.
would
Middleton.
move that we amend the language to read, Charleston County will explore and engage in testing and trials for possible alternative energy solutions in an effort to reduce overall greenhouse gas emissions and implement those where it is fiscally responsible and practical to do so.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Middleton. Mr. Pryor, discussion. Thank you. And I would also like to thank Reverend Middleton, you, and I know Mr. Boykin, I think, met with staff and really got your arms around this and hammered something out. So thank you on behalf of the committee for that work.
you.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Back to you, Mr. Sass.
Thank you.
We don't have to have a HR meeting.
I had put it in the end in case y'all did executive session, but if you're not doing executive session, then you can do it now.
Okay, we are going to have our HR meeting first, Mr. Werman.
Sass, this is the Human Resources Committee meeting. I sit as chair, Councilman Boykin, Councilwoman Honeycutt, Councilman Pryor, and then Chairman Sass, also members of the committee. First item on the agenda is
Move for
approval.
approval.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, hearing none, the minutes are approved. Our second item on the agenda
Mr.
is...
Chairman,
Yes, Mr.
I
Pryor.
move that county council, well, you go ahead, you read it. All right, go ahead. I was going to have my own voice, you got to go ahead.
That's fine. I'll step in for Mr. Pryor. Mr. Chairman, I move to extend Bill Teeton's employment as the county administrator in accordance with the terms discussed in executive session and authorize the chairman to execute an addendum to the employment contract consistent with those terms.
I'll just offer for the public, I know it was agended as an executive session. I think that it seems like most of the discussion has been had. So that being said, I'm willing to support this. Any further discussion?
I just said, everybody got a copy, they read it, and then we got until Tuesday, if anybody wants to amend it, do anything, they can do it on Tuesday. That saves the executive session.
I agree. Anyone else on the committee or otherwise? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. We'll take this up on Tuesday.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Next, we're going to our Finance Committee agenda.
Move for approval, item number
Second.
1.
Moved by Mr. Pryor, seconded by, was that you, Mr. Moody?
Middleton.
Middleton? Okay, I'm sorry. Moved by Mr. Pryor, seconded by Mr. Middleton. Any questions, additions, deletions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much.
Approval on item 2A. Second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. Consent agenda? Yes, sir.
Forward, you know, we can approve everything else. I got a question on 3E, so I'd move for A, B, C, D, F, and G.
Second.
Okay, moved by Mr. Pryor, seconded by Mr. Moody. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. Next, we'll do
Mr.
3E.
Mr. Chairman, I'd some explanation on this 3E, on this this South Red and Bexley intersection. And that's where the railroad comes across, right?
Right.
So is that a state street, county street, or city street?
Councilman Pryor, believe that most of those roads in there are SCDOT roads. The jurisdiction is the city of North Charleston. This is a CTC request by the city of North Charleston that was approved by the CTC. We're just operating on their behalf.
Okay,
to
now that
design.
explains it more, because I just want to make sure it wasn't coming out of the county's coffers.
Yes, sir. That's
Okay,
correct.
so the CTC is going to be paying for that, we just be doing the project, managing the project?
State gas tax money that we are just administering.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
okay, I got no problem with that, move for approval.
Okay, moved and seconded by Mr. Pryor and Mr. Moody. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. Last item.
Move for approval of 4A.
Moved by Mr. Boykin, seconded by Ms. Honeycutt.
We already voted on it.
We did.
Yeah, we don't agree. So, the improvements on Burbank Highway, the funding is coming from what, money we saved and the,
Existing funding
Existing-
left over from the original project.
and so what are we doing here? You know, I mean,
We are getting final design for the 2 lanes going off the
For the
island.
fourth lane.
Fourth lane.
so, may I ask this question, and I don't mean to be facetious, but I know we've done a lot on James and Johns Island. And, you know, a lot of other districts has got some things that, I think Reverend Milton has got something in his district that needed to be done. And, you know, what I would like to see happen in the future going forward is when these monies become available, each council member has awareness of it, because there's things in my district that I might want to use some of this funding for. We could either do it that way, you know, we can divide the money up into 9 different districts and split it to do some smaller projects. I need some like speed humps and sidewalks and stuff like that, repairs. You know, some of this money can help. I love John Island, don't get me wrong, but I just don't want everything to be spent over there and nothing gets done in the rest of the district. So, I mean, I know Reverend Milton has got something, which street is that? Red Top. And so some of this money could go toward design and everything, but he needs to speed the process up as well, too. So, that's my, you know, comments on this. But I would like, anytime this money becomes available, everybody should know, not just one particular district, just because it was done or saved in that district, because we shifted money before from other districts to districts that really need it
We have.
since I've been here. And so, going forward, Mr. Administrator, any money that's left over in any project, I'd like it to come before county council before we to make a decision and allocate it, then bring it to us for a vote. I think that's just fair. I'm going to support this on tonight, but I'm just saying moving forward. That's what I would like to see happen. If it ain't but $1, 9 council members need to know there's $1 left. How do we, with 1/9, how we do it, that's fine.
Is that a motion?
Yeah, my motion is to, well, the motion already on the floor. I'm sorry.
Motion on the floor, excuse me. Is there any more discussion about the motion that's on the floor? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. Ms. Pryor,
Yes, you will.
you want to, maybe this is something we need to bring up
I'd second that if that's a motion.
about, I'd like to know exactly what we do now. When we have money left over, it goes, we use it for other projects, and
Well, it should go back into the transportation sales tax bucket.
it does, I think it does.
And then we make a decision on how we want to use it. But, you know, I have no problem with projects that needs to be done. But what I'm saying is, I mean, just because it's in a certain district where the money is saved, just don't say I'm going to spend that 1.8 or $2 million in that district. Let all of us know what's going on, because it could be an important project in our district, the 8 of us, that, you know, we can use the funding for.
Mr. Chair, if I'm not mistaken, when I made the motion way back when, we authorized transportation to use those funds to further those projects, which would include this.
Right.
So we'd already given authorization for them to expend these funds for that project.
Well, no, you didn't give them authorization because we wouldn't be voting on it if you did.
Well-
What you did, you probably directed them
Right.
to do this, but in order for the money to be expended, we have to vote on it.
There was a financial component in my motion.
Yeah, but I mean, but I'm just saying from here on out, I'd like to see it done that way because I think it's the fairest and the best way to do it.
All right, sir. Thank you, sir.
On those lines, I just wanted to at least put on the table the new Hughes Road outfall in Red Top. Preliminary analysis has been done. 6 alternatives for the new outfall were estimated, and so the consultant is bringing back 2 models, and those top 2 estimates will, be presented to me at some point to present to council, and it looks like that would be over $1 million-ish, but it's going to be necessary in order to relieve some of the flooding issues that are happening over there. So I wanted to at least, put that on the table, that I will be coming back asking, not knowing, how the appetite for that will be. And then lastly, wanted to just thank all of you for our collaboration tonight on everything that we've done, but wanted to remind you that the Climate Action Plan, the process, Kristen Salisbury did send on March 25th an email reminding us of public comments closing on March 29th, which was Friday, as well as our comments to Ms. Gerstein and to the sustainability and resiliency folks so that we can give them our comments for that climate action plan in advance so that they can have that. It's already closed, but I wanted to at least remind council, please do that so that we can be intentional and they can be responsive based on your concerns.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Anything else?
One
Mr.
more
Pryor?
thing, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Red, and you and your crew, I'm gonna call it a crew, but y'all have been so successful, and thank you for that. But I saw where this $2 million for these nonprofits are out. Could you do everything you can and get it out on social media? Get it out on these radio stations, because that's a public service announcement, it's free, and the TV announcement, so these folks will know what a deadline it is. But if we put it on social media, not on our page, but general social media, so it can be shared, so that way everybody will have a chance, so they can't come to us at the last minute and say, I didn't know. So if you can do that, I see we have our new, is it Chloe? Yep. Miss Chloe over here, so, yeah, thank you for being here. But y'all young people are social media whiz, so, I'm just trying to get along and go along, but I'll be watching to see, but, my grandkids know more about that stuff than I do.
Mr. Pryor, I want to tell you, it's already out on Channel 5 because I saw the story on it.
Yeah, I saw it too, but like radio stations, most of these people listen to Christian music and hip hop, so I just want to make sure it's all out there. It's free because it's a public service announcement. Thank you.
All right. Thank you all very much. We'll see y'all next week.
Yes, sir.
It is free.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, public service announcements like this, it's free. It don't cost us that.